Yes, I'll add a bit.
Just need more screens, don't you?
Okay, we're now live, James.
Thank you, CEO. Welcome everybody, and welcome to the ordinary meeting of Snowy Valleys Council, 10th of December 2020. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land and pay respects to elders past and present. This meeting is live streamed on Council's website to allow the community to follow Council debates and decisions. Members of the public participating in a meeting agree to have their image, voice and personal information, including their name and address, recorded and publicly broadcast. Snowy Valleys Council does not accept liability for any defamatory remarks or inappropriate comments that are made during the course of a meeting. Any part of the meeting that's held in closed session will not be streamed. Please ensure mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting, and no recording of voices or images is permitted. In the event of emergency at a council meeting, please evacuate the area using the nearest exit. If participating in the meeting from an alternative venue, please enact the evacuation plan for that location if required. Council is currently operating under the temporary provisions of Section 447A of the Local Government Act, which allows for online meetings, and the provision of the Act takes precedent over any conflicts with the adopted Snowy Valleys Code of Meeting Practice. Councillors, do we have any apologies and leave of absence?
Mr. Mayor, we have a leave of absence from Councillor Cross.
Thank you, CEO. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Larder, seconder. Councillor Ham. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Declaration of pecuniary interest. Councillor Benjamin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I declare a non-significant non-pecuniary interest in relation to report 11.5 due to having a professional relationship and have employed the owner of the property in the past.
Thank you, Councillor Benjamin. And you won't be leaving the room?
Yes, correct.
You'll be participating in debate or not?
Yes, I will be participating.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Public forum. We do have Brad Bowen from Crow Howarth, but I believe he's late, Mr. CEO.
That's correct. He's been detained on another matter. Mr. Mayor, if we could have a procedural motion to move that item till later on in the agenda. Can I make a suggestion around that?
You certainly may.
The Council defer item 10.1, presentation of the 2019-20 annual financial statements, until later in the agenda when our external auditor, Mr. Brad Bowen from Crow Haworth, is available at approximately 2:30 p.m.
Thank you. Do I have a mover for that? Councillor Larder, seconder. Councillor Smith. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. So we'll put that back. Confirmations of the minutes of the meeting of the 19th of November, for which I was an apology. Do I have a mover for those? Councillor Ham, seconder. Councillor Larder. Thank you, Councillor Larder, for chairing that meeting in my absence. Business arising from that. Nothing? Okay. Did I put that motion? All in favour? Yeah. Carried. Thank you. Correspondence and petitions. There's nothing. No rescission notices. No mayoral minutes. Brings us on to governance and financial reports. 10.1. The annual financial statements.
We just move that one, Mr. Mayor, till later on the agenda. So we can go
10.2. I've got to get the 10.2, page 39.
Page 42 electronically, page 39 on the paper version.
Thank you. I've arrived. Code of conduct complaints statistics for the reporting period, 1st of September 2019 and 31st of August 2020. Mover. Councillor Smith, Councillor Ham. Councillor Smith, anything to say?
Just the comment that it is such a minuscule document. There has been very little activity in code of conduct, which is very pleasing.
Thank you. Any other councillors?
I'd just like to add to that, if I could, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Ham, carry.
I was just wondering if we could have an extra recommendation to that, to ask whether we could write to the Minister of Local Government to have this code of conduct and area of local government better resourced, because what I've heard and what I've researched and what I've seen is code of conducts come in and they take a lot of money and they take a lot of time and are basically a toothless tiger. I think it's something that should all be reviewed.
So what's your recommendation?
I think that's my recommendation, is to write to the Minister of Local Government to say, can the code of conduct complaint system be reviewed?
Right. So,
You need to have, in what way?
moving to second,
Anyway.
happy with that?
Mr. Mayor, the matter has been moved and seconded by Councillor Smith, Councillor Ham. So if those councillors agree to that addition.
Councillor Smith?
Yes, fine, thank you.
Okay. Councillor Pritchard?
I was just saying it's a vague motion. I think we should put some body to it. In what way did you want to review? Strengthened or weakened or made more sensible?
I'm looking for words there, Jeff, so I appreciate that. Yeah, well, you know, if you're having a code of conduct, hopefully a code of conduct's been put in with, you know, a lot of thought behind it for something to be made and changed pretty quickly. And the other thing is, if it's a person, if you're the person that's had the code of conduct against you, it can take up to 2 or 3 years to get a resolution back, which is a lot of stress for people. I just would like it. I think I'd like it to be better resourced and with a quicker turnaround.
Have we got a recommendation to reflect that?
I'm just typing that up at the moment, Mr. Mayor.
Keep typing. Councillor Larder.
Can I just say, I think there needs to be some input around the vexatious complaints. I also wonder whether the general manager should be taken out of the process, because I think, you know, with respect to the CEO or general manager, it's very difficult for them to, even if they want to, investigate these matters. I mean, they come in and there's very little substance to a lot of the stuff that comes across the table. But I think the hierarchy feel as though if it doesn't get outsourced, then there's always that, the CEO swept this under the carpet to protect the council. So, I mean, I'd be interested in the CEO's views on it, but these people who just keep complaining for the sake of it and costing us a lot of money and essentially taking money away from playgrounds, which is what they're doing, and it's usually the same suspects, they should be put on a serial complainants list, and we shouldn't have to investigate any of their vexatious stuff.
CEO.
Mr. Mayor, yes, most complaints on average cost us about $3,500 to $4,000 in getting investigators to investigate the matter. I do agree with what Councillor Larder has said in regards to the CEO in that matter, and that has been raised with the Office of Local Government a number of times by a number of local governments, and we are trying to get that change in place to take the CEO out of that process. At the moment, at Snowy Valleys Council, we do refer to the panel of providers through the Canberra Joint Organisation to do those investigations, and every one of those investigations is facilitated by our complaints officer in council, and that facilitation also costs time and money. So it is important in our process to have that ability for people to lodge requests and complaints about matters, but where that is abused and not for proper purposes, it can waste a lot of ratepayer money that can be spent on other matters.
Thank you, CEO. Councillors, given we've got now number 3, I might put the recommendations, the 3 recommendations together.
Would you like me to put that up on the screen, Mr. Mayor?
I think we should need to see it first before we vote on it.
I'll just share that screen.
I'm happy with that. Thank you very much, CEO.
Any further comments?
Well, I'd maybe just put, add something like responsible matter, because I think the problem is these things aren't, they're just outsourced for the sake of it.
Result in more timely.
Any responsible matters?
And responsible matter, timely and responsible manner.
And do you want to put in there without input from the CEO?
Yeah, I think that's important. I think we need to reiterate that because, it's...
Yeah. Yeah, great. Happy to support that.
Okay. Councillors, we settled on that? Mover, you're happy with that? Councillors? Yeah. Thank you. Put the motion. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Thanks, councillors. Local Government New South Wales Annual Conference, which was held virtually just recently. Thank the CEO for the report. Do I have a mover? Councillor Ham, seconder. Councillor Benjamin. Any comment? Oh, yeah.
It was a virtual conference, which rather than having a day and a half to go through all the resolutions, it was done in half a day. And personally, I found that a little bit frustrating that a lot of the motions that I was interested in are now going to be decided by a board, which made me wonder why we were there for even half a day if it was the majority were going to be decided by a board anyhow. I realised there was limitations because it was via Zoom. I was very pleased to see that we were able to have our resolutions about weeds, and that was brought up and accepted. We were able to say verbally how we felt that the FAGS grant that we got since we've merged was not, we actually lost out when we merged, the two councils merging together. And I have great faith that the motion about the essential workers of childcare and early childhood services will be passed.
Thank you. Anything further? Put the motion. All in favour, 1 and 2. It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Training online code of conduct for councillors. Councillor Ham. Recommendations there. Have the report on training. Receive the report on training. Yep. 1 and 2. Mover. Councillor Smith, seconder. Councillor Wright. Thanks, Councillor Wright. Pretty self-explanatory. I would suggest that maybe if the mover and seconder are happy that we might add a point 3 there that should any councillor wish to avail themselves of their code of conduct training, it be approved. Would the mover and seconder be happy with that?
Yes, sir.
CEO, can you add that, please? That'll save us bringing another report.
I recommended it. Was actually very good.
Thank you, councillors. With the addition of that third point, which is pretty self-explanatory, I'll put the motion. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. (2021) meeting calendar. Councillor Larder. Councillor Benjamin. Councillor Larder.
I'll just endorse it.
Thank you. With the motion, all in favour? Carried. Thank you. Statement of investments, 10.6. This might take a little longer. Mover. Councillor Ham, seconder. Councillor Larder. Councillor Ham.
I just wanted to check the statewide mutual progress payment. I presume that is for insurance, and if so, is that all we're going to get? Are we happy with that insurance payment? Is there anything else we need to know about what's happening with insurance, and has our premium gone up? Sorry, CFO, that's all the questions I've got.
CFO.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Ham. It is an insurance payment for the damage of fixed assets. So I believe it was a toilet block and some other fixed assets. And there is still a small amount outstanding. The insurance claim has not been finalised. And yes, our premiums have gone up, but not due to the bushfires. Insurance premiums are rising Australia-wide.
Right, okay. Thank you. Did that include, so would that would have included the Orney Hall, I presume?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I am not sure whether this particular figure includes the Orney Hall, but yes, the Orney Hall is part of our insurance claim.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councillor Isselman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, please. The tree removal claimable, what's the funding on tree removal on our roads and so on in relation to the fires? Is this just an ongoing amount every month until it's finally done, or is there what's the situation with tree removal?
I might refer that to the Executive Director, Korsh. Mayor Hines.
Yep. Sorry, just getting the video up. Yeah, the works are ongoing. We're paying the invoices as we go. We've got several contractors working on that, and concurrently sorting through the claim in that work is claimable under natural disaster recovery funding arrangements. We are still having issues with the claim and currently sorting those out now. So we're still yet to claim the work.
So were people only able to identify trees to be looked at right at the beginning, or now that there's nearly a year gone by and trees are dying and there's a new round of trees in danger, what situation are we in relation to that to the community?
The work we're doing is very much within our local road corridors. I suppose if areas that we've already been to and there's issues have since occurred, we'd be hoping that the residents would let us know. We'll go and have a look and reassess. But we need them to be specific and let us know. We're not going to go back unless we've got a request to do so.
All right.
Thank you, Councillor.
So financially, we're okay with tree removal?
Financially, it is covered under natural disaster recovery funding arrangements, yes.
Councillor Smith.
As you travel around the region, there's obviously a lot of that work going on, and there's a lot of road hold-ups. And I'm just wondering if there's any indication how long this process is going to be going on for. And yes, the funding has been covered already, but how long do we anticipate that this process will continue?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if I may. Yep. Yeah, so the work we've been doing on our local road corridors, we're not far off finishing that. The timeline was end of February next year. We think we are going to achieve that. Work has just started on the state road corridors, and that might be what you've seen more recently, Cor, in that the state are now getting into that. We're helping them manage that work. They've only just started that work over the last week or so. So I expect that'll have several months to run yet.
Thank you.
Councillor Ham.
I've been getting some feedback that with the clearing that it's been a little bit too aggressive, particularly in terms of land care and of animals living in trees, and that everything's been cleared. And then on the flip side, I've been told that was part of the 79 recommendations, that the corridors were to be completely cleared. Do you have what do we say as a council to people clearing the corridors?
Yeah, our clearing is very much focused on reducing the hazard from dangerous trees and stockpile debris as far as bushfire and danger to well-being. Very mindful of the need to also retain hollow logs, both standing and on the ground, for native habitat. So that's very much part of the work. And we do have an environmentalist with us on the job sites advising on that. So we're very understanding of that balance and very much trying to reduce the hazard, reduce the risks for our community, but also minimise or create habitat for our flora and fauna.
Councillor
Oh,
Smith.
thank you.
There's another issue that I've become aware of through a local resident, that through that process of removing those trees, they've also included private land and fences, boundary fences between road and and private land have been removed and just piled up. There has been some warning prior to that happening, in that the contractors have said, if you want to salvage any material from your fence, to do that, because it's going to be removed. Now, when that happens, who bears the cost of replacing those fences?
Councillor Smith, I'm not sure on that one. That would be possibly one that we could bring up with the bushfire recovery officer later on.
Thank you.
Just on individual cases, it will probably vary. Councillors, any other questions on that? Councillor Wright, you had a question?
Yeah, I just wondered what, since we're on this subject, what's happening with the Elliott Way? Any news that nothing's happened, no contracts have been let? I just wondered what's going on there.
CEO?
Through the chair, if I may, Councillor Wright, the tender documents have been drafted up. However, the significant rain event that we received not long ago has caused some additional damage. So I believe there's 4 tenders that have been or about to be let in regards to the stabilisation works on that area. And there's further assessment to happen on the new areas that have now become more unstable. And there'll be further tenders that will come out on that. We have been advocating at every opportunity we have to get that opened, and it has been very well heard. And when I attend regional coordination group meetings, they anticipate that question being asked every time from myself. And we're getting updates from National Parks and Wildlife Service about how they're progressing on that. It is a highly complex matter, and they're looking at how they create opportunities to get that work done as fast as possible.
Thank you, CEO. Nothing further? Okay, we'll put that motion. All in favour? It's unanimous, thank you. Takes us on to 10.7, financial report. Moving it, Councillor Pritchard. Or scratching. Councillor Ham. Councillor Benjamin.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. If I could just ask the CEO why employee costs seem we're only, I know we've had the bushfires and I realise it would be up a bit, but why employee costs would be above budget by 18% in this the first half of this financial year? What's happening there?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for the question, Councillor Ham. CEO.
Thank you. Through the chair, Councillor Ham. We have got a lot of additional projects happening at the moment, and there's still extensive bushfire work happening. We just heard Mr. Couch talk about the roadside removal works and other works that are happening in bushfire response. So even though a lot of those costs are up, they are recoverable, and we'll go about that recovery process. So as the quarterly budget review comes through, we'll be revising some of the income and the expenditure around those particular matters now that we have a better handle on what those costs will be. I don't believe that it's anything alarmist at this stage. And certainly we have got an internal program to ensure that our capitalisation starts to happen a lot more, because a lot of our wages do get capitalised for the projects that are building infrastructure in our area.
Thank you. Councillor Pritchard, you're asking a question? Councillor Larder.
Just in relation to the employment, can we get an update on whether we're eligible for the federal government schemes for the apprenticeships and the offset of the wages?
Mr Mayor, Councillor Larder, we do qualify in the capacity that the amount of income that we've lost it certainly justifies us getting that funding that's been released by the New South Wales government. However, the other conditions for that funding is that we have to actually lay off staff, and we have got an amendment to the award which facilitates a process that we've negotiated with local government, New South Wales and the unions. However, we believe that it's an economic stimulus keeping our employees employed, and that creates money turning over in our economy. So while we did lose some income, we are trying to redeploy our staff, and we've been continuing with business as usual. So on that component that we haven't laid off any staff, we don't qualify for that funding. We did put a motion up to the Local Government New South Wales Conference to look at a different distribution of those funding to the councils in need. I believe that only 3 councils have actually realised funds from that fund to this date, and the rest of that money is being held by the state government. So it would be great to get that money released, and Local Government New South Wales is considering that as a board motion at the moment.
Thank you, CEO.
That wasn't, whilst that was a good response, it wasn't really what I was asking. I was more asking about the federal money, where the federal government has released funds for an apprenticeship incentive scheme where they're taking on, I think, 50% of the wages for the first year on any apprentice that's brought into the system. So, given the fact that we have spoken previously about having a very bold program for apprentices, do we qualify for that?
Councillor Larder, I'd have to take that matter on notice. I know we have raised it with our staff, and we have quite a considerable entry-level program that we're implementing over a 3-year period. We are looking at whether we can incorporate additional positions due to the funding that we're able to receive. We haven't got the full responses on that yet, but I'll certainly take that matter on notice and provide some feedback to the councillors.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Larder. Nothing further? Put the motion. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Budget principles, 11.1. Councillor Ham. Councillor Smith. Councillor Ham.
We've discussed these robustly in a council workshop. Very happy with that, and very happy that, particularly with point number 8, that we advocate for support from all levels of government. And I feel like us as councillors, it's part of our role that we should be advocating as much as possible to support these principles.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. Well summed up. Anything further, councillors? Put the motion. All in favour? It's unanimous. Thank you. Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program Funding Round 2. Councillor Larder. Councillor Benjamin. Councillor Larder.
Just it's all good.
Okay. Any councillors commenting? Thank you. There's certainly some very worthwhile projects in there, and I thank the staff for putting it together. Put the motion. All in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Pioneer Park Tumut proposed master plan. Councillor Smith. Councillor Ham. Councillor Ham, are you moving that we go into committee? Was that what that was?
I am.
So do we
I
have?
am reading my mind.
Yeah, seconder. Councillor Pritchard. Councillor Ham.
Oh, Councillor Schmidt, I think it is.
Councillor Smith, sorry.
No, I was going to actually yes, move to go into committee about that. I think that there's a lot of different ideas about this whole process. I believe that the offer of $55,000 to create a master plan for Pioneer Park is a very generous offer. I also believe that we should look at the reasons why this offer has been made and what the purpose behind it is. And if we do decide to accept this offer and have this organisation create a master plan, that council should not in any way be beholden to executing that private master plan as it is developed from a private organisation, but that it could only be used as a guide in any future discussions or planning or developments in that park, because it is clearly a park that is highly valued by many people in the community, and that it really should be managed by council for the community. However, having a master plan prepared such as is proposed, that it could be useful for council to refer to it and use it as a consultative tool what the community may or may not be wanting.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. That's very comprehensive summary. I believe we are in committee. Can I just check with the minute taker that we've moved into committee? Have we? Yep. Yep, we are in committee. So, other councillors speaking? Councillor Pritchard. On mute, Jeff.
Yes, Mr. Mayor. The Pioneer Park down there is not a separate entity. It's part of the Riverwalk, which extends from Go-Cup Road and Gilmore Creek right down to the racecourse. It's all one integrated park area, Riverwalk. And it was done over many years, incrementally. It was opened officially when I was the mayor at the time. And there's a stone down at the parking area at the Pioneer Park. And I've got a photograph of it here and I've sent it on to the general manager. But if there's a stone down there with a park on it, you can all go and see. Tumut, which is the Aboriginal word for Tumut Riverwalk, Pioneer Park Tumut. This was a joint project that's established by the Australian Nature Conservation Agency, the Mudjong Aboriginal Corporation and the Tumut Shire Council, and it was officially opened on Friday the 25th of May 1995. So it's 25 years ago when we opened it. And that had been preceded by a lot of work. Rotary cleaned up the Pioneer Park and different community bodies did different parts, and we had a long, hard journey amalgamating it all into this wonderful Riverwalk, which is a jewel in our crown, really. And Pioneer Park is the centrepiece of it, and it can't be separated off from the rest of it and have the development decided by an outside consultant who's based in Sydney at the cost of $55,000 to do the plan for it. To my mind, it's a gem, and I think it's been well developed at the moment, with the exception of that labyrinth. But as it is, it's just wonderful. It's full of trees and it's beautiful ambience and whatever. It's got a playground. It's got all sorts of things in it, and I think it's developed to the maximum extent that we need it developed, in my opinion, because we need to be concentrating on the future of the whole Riverwalk. You know, I'd like to see it extended upstream to Angle Bend, where Tumut used to be, just beyond the racecourse. I'd like to see a shortcut between the football entrance near the showground along by to the bull paddock. There are all sorts of little bits and pieces we could add to it. But we can't pick out one area, I don't think, and overdevelop it. And it would be overdevelopment. If you just go and walk around there, it's just wonderful. And to spend $35,000 on a master plan, and that then would require whatever the master plan says to do all sorts of different things. We're not a Chinese garden. This is just a wonderful natural asset, and to interfere with it in any other significant way, I think it'd be wrong. And I don't like the thought of an outside body being, and we don't know who's involved in it, to have control of the future development of it. I don't think we need this master plan. It's coming from the Blake Miller Foundation, which is set up for the good of the Tumut people. And that $55,000 would be, in my opinion, be better spent on looking after some of our pressing community needs elsewhere. We can continue the development of the River Walk by setting up a committee of interested citizens and doing it bit by bit as we've done for the last 30 or 40 years. And I'd be opposed to, I'd be voting against any to this motion completely.
Thank you, Councillor Pritchard. Other speakers? Councillor Lada.
Yeah, I just concur with what Councillor Pritchard just said. It concerns me greatly that the organisers or people in charge of Blakely Miller can essentially dictate to council what happens in a council area. Essentially, I mean, this document says that they're going to give us $55,000, but it's conditional on the fact that they can basically hijack the rights to tell us what we're going to do in the future with this park, and I don't think that that's in keeping with the sentiments of the Blakely Miller Foundation or the lady who made the very generous donation to the Tumut community. I mean, I think the whole idea and the way that organisation structured needs to be looked at. And I think the public should start asking some questions about how these arrangements are taking place. They've pulled the funding for the high school education trips. They've, in my view, wasted in excess of $500,000 on a concrete slab in the middle of this park for the ducks to crap on. It's just a complete waste of money. Now, I think there needs to be an overhaul of their system, and there needs to be some more public involvement in what happens with that process. Maybe they need to come up with, 10 benefits or opportunities that money could be used for on an annual basis, and people vote on it in the Tumut community, very similar to what happened with our logo. But to have, a cartel telling the Tumut community what they're going to spend the money on, like that complete waste of time labyrinth that was just a waste of money, and release the figures on it. Let everyone know exactly what it did cost, because it was in excess of $500,000, and I understand well in excess of $500,000. And I'm not sure what benefit it's providing, and I just think it's an absolute mistake to allow them to basically dictate to us what we do in this park. And the $55,000 could be better put to use to serving the community of Tumut. I mean, they won't entertain the idea of doing a master plan for a sporting indoor centre, which I would have thought was in keeping with their mandate, but that's obviously not on their agenda. They want to, attack Pioneer Park. So I can tell you now, it's not something I'm wanting to entertain. And I completely agree with Councillor Pritchard on this.
Councillor Ham.
This recommendation has been put forward by the Executive for Infrastructure. I'm just wondering if he could give his, this is put forward to accept the $55,000, And, you know, I'm all for accepting money into the council. I can see that. I find it hard to find out that we need $8,352 for administration and management. So I need to understand that better. And yeah, would the Executive Director of Infrastructure be able to talk on that for me?
Sure he will. Executive Director.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. The money offered by the foundation only covers the cost, the direct costs of the consultant. So normally, you know, when we're managing projects through to delivery, which in this case would be the completion of a master plan, there's obviously significant consultation that needs to go on. There'll be progress payments. Potentially there's variation. So the administration and the project management side or aspect of that, we normally allow between 10 and 15%. In this case, we've allowed 15%. That could be a conservative estimate. It might be high, it might come in less than that. But that's the basis behind that $8,000. In regard to the consideration of the offer, in putting this report together, I felt that I had to convey the information that was conveyed to me from the foundation. I didn't want to, influence the decision of council in any way. I've just provided a report as it is, as the request came to us from the foundation. I hope that helps.
Yeah, no, that's good.
So as someone who is, you know, doing infrastructure all the time and finding it hard to get money, do you think this is good value? Do you think this is something we should, you know, you're not going to, you know, like, do you think this is a good idea?
I think the Pioneer Park is a key facility for Tumut. I think from an asset management perspective, to have a plan in place for how we're going to manage that facility in years to come. From an asset management perspective, that's a good thing to have. But I very much understand the concerns of council in regard to the conditions and the intent that might be behind that. And that's for councillors. That's not for me as an officer of council.
Thank you, Heinz. You're just starting to break up a bit. You might need to be closer to your microphone. Councillor Isselman.
Mr. Mayor, I cannot vote to accept this recommendation on a number of issues. The first one I take is on 3.2A2, where they're asking us to enter into a consultancy agreement. I believe that's against our tendering responsibilities as a council when we're asked to actually accept a tender, a particular company to do it. And I think that's against our principles of tendering, which I think is wrong. I'm also against this because at 3.9, they're asking council and telling council that we'll donate this money so long as you don't do any more in the park until we get the master plan accepted and finished. Those two things in the actual recommendation I find difficult. Another point I'd like to make is that with respect to our executive, a master plan for the sake of a master plan doesn't make a good decision. We have had on various occasions in council's history master plans that have been developed that have been incredibly wrong and that keep coming back to bite the actual executive and the planners, because that's on the books, and that's not what we want here. Thirdly, I really support Councillor Pritchard's position in relation to the ambience of that particular area and what it is and how it is important to Tumut. As much as I love and appreciate the Tumbarumba creekscape, I certainly don't want Pioneer Park to become another highly overdeveloped environment that loses all the natural beauty running beside the river that we have at the moment. So those reasons are really important, I think, to the whole community and really to us as council. We mustn't be caught up by a master plan that is going to keep coming up all the time. And if we don't have input on it and we don't have opportunities to have a tender situation to get the master plan designed, then it's not a council plan. We're being held in some respects with our hands behind our back for $55,000. And I accept what Councillor Larter has said as well. I personally believe that as a council, we should ask the Blakeney Lodge Foundation to find somewhere else to spend this money that would support the Tumut community, because at this time, it's not appropriate for us to accept it.
Thank you, Councillor Lissam. I'll just correct that. So Blakeney Miller.
My apologies. Yes.
Okay, that's okay. Councillors, any further? Councillor Benjamin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've just got a question for the Director of Infrastructure. Has the foundation actually had any community consultation with the Tumut community in regards to this master plan proposal?
Executive Director.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not that I'm aware of, Councillor Benjamin, that they have been discussing it with council officers.
Okay.
We have had some input as council officers, but I'm not aware of any other consultation outside of that at this stage.
Yeah, I think it's.
I do know. Sorry. I do note in the proposal put forward by the consultant that it does include community workshop and consultation with stakeholders as part of the development.
Lost you again, Heinz. Okay, now I've got a couple more councillors. Councillor Larter.
Can I just ask if there's been any consultation with the proponents of this plan, and what those dealings were? Were they willing to deal with council on this, or was there, or was it was just basically like it or lump it?
Who's going to answer that question? I haven't spoken to them.
If I may, through the chair, I think they've put a proposal forward. There's been minor discussion back with their representative. It's up to council whether they choose to alter the conditions and go back to them with alternative proposal. We can either do that formally in the resolution or defer the matter for further consultation if council's to give us a little bit of sentiment and direction around what we're to go back and negotiate on.
Councillors, I just at this point, just they haven't come to council, to the councillors at all. My feeling is this, and I'll leave it up to you, but maybe if we let all those recommendations lapse and replace them with that the councillors meet with the board of the Blakeney Miller Foundation to discuss funding proposals. Full stop.
I'd support that.
I'm not speaking against what you suggest, Mr. Mayor, but I've tried to contact this organisation. They're a private philanthropic organisation whose responsibility or interest is in Tumut itself. I went on their website to find out who to contact, and there was nobody to contact. You could put your own details in and they would contact you. We don't know who the board is. We have no idea. It's an anonymous organisation, and I refuse to have anything to do with them in those circumstances. And I don't want to meet with them. I think this is a preposterous suggestion here, and I think we just ignore it.
Look, Councillor Pritchard, that may be the case, but I think the point is the money was left in good faith for the community of Tumut. And I think as council, we're here to serve the whole council area, but Tumut as well. So we would be negligent, I believe, if we resolve not to meet with them, because they are the keepers of this money. They are responsible for it, and I think we should give them the opportunity to meet with us. They may well refuse to meet with us, but I think that's the only fair thing to do, and I think it would, it may well resolve a lot of differences, and it may well give us the opportunity to find out a little bit more about the way the Blakeney Miller Foundation is operating in now and into the future. Councillor Risselman.
Mr. Mayor, I hear what you're saying, but it seems to be consistent that when people have asked to meet with the full board, that for some reason the board does not meet and one or maybe two people have turned up to the meeting. Now, if you call that meeting as you're suggesting, then are we going to get the whole board, or will we just have the repetition of what we've had before and one or two people turn up? So my position is, if I may, if I could move a motion in respect to this. Is that out of order at the present moment?
You can foreshadow one, I suppose.
I can foreshadow one, if I may. My foreshadowing of motion.
So you can move, sorry, Councillor Isselman, you can move an amendment.
Amendment, yes.
Yep.
Just give us an idea of what you want to do first.
All right, I would like to say...
We're still in, you can't move one in.
No.
You can give us an idea.
Yeah. I would foreshadow a motion where I actually say that we don't accept this offer because, as it's been stated, it would benefit the community better in some other way, and that we form a council committee to manage the formation of a master plan for that area, and that we invite the Blakely Miller Foundation Board to attend a meeting with all councillors. That's my 3-point proposed motion. Thank you.
Okay. My suggestion there is that limits it just to the Pioneer Park.
Yeah, I think you're right, Mr. Mayor. I think the issue is here. It's not just about the park, is it? You know, it's about all the other money that's going to waste. I mean, so we need to have some influence back into their hierarchy to find out what the modus operandi is here. You know, like we want this money, as I'm sure the founder did, and the Mrs. Blakely Miller, she obviously wanted to benefit the community, and I think a lot of people in the community think that this money's just been flushed down the toilet.
Other councillors?
Wouldn't that be why we met with them?
Yeah, I agree. Let's meet with them.
Councillor Smith.
Mr. Mayor, having thought about this and hearing all of the discussion that's gone on, I believe that the issue is simply that we have a motion on our books and some recommendations about what to do about it. And I believe that your suggestion of altering those recommendations and having just the one recommendation that council contact the organisation that's making this very generous offer and offer to meet with them to formulate a way forward that would be acceptable to council as well as to the foundation to, if indeed as one would expect, it's a genuine offer of benefiting the community and having a good plan for this park, which I have used for the last 20 years and love and, you know, walk in quite regularly. If that is a genuine offer, we should not be seen to just, you know, refuse that or not be prepared to look into it, but at least by having a recommendation that we offer to meet with the organisation to discuss this further, I think is a good way forward, and I would accept that change in recommendation.
Right. Thanks, Councillor Smith. Councillor Risselman, then we might wrap up, I think.
Yes, sorry about that, but the fact remains is that the Blakely Miller Foundation has given us a very comprehensive outline of what they expect for this $55,000. They haven't just offered it and said, you know, we'll just do this and, you know, we'll chat with it later. They've laid it out and they've got, you know, confidential papers that they've given us and a whole range of things. This is a really intense, this is what we want to do. I can't see that meeting with them on this issue is going to necessarily make a great deal of change about where they want to go. I mean, it's there in, you know, in black and white. These are the conditions we want. So in that respect, that's why I say I can't accept this recommendation. And I really do think that we need to go with, please pass the money on to someone else in the community. We would like to meet with you to discuss other matters in the future, and form a committee, because then we've got a direction as far as our council goes. We've got a committee that's going to look at forward planning that can support other situations that might come up in relation to master planning of this area. We've had executive tell us that a master plan would be an advantage, a good thing to have. So yes, let's get on and do it, but do it through a committee that's a council committee, not being directed by an unknown group.
Thank you, Councillor Isselman. I think, firstly, I think meeting with them is polite, and it would be a good start, and I think we probably need to do that. Secondly, I think probably we're in the process of trying to divest ourselves of committees, and maybe we'd be better off with just a simple working group and do it that way, because after all, we're not, and the finances show we're not in a great position, so we don't want to be setting up things that are going to cost us more money as well.
A council working group would be quite fine.
Fine. Okay. So, councillors, I might suggest that we move out of committee, and after that, I might propose an amendment to the motion. Councillor Larder, you moving? Councillor Benjamin, all in favour? Okay, councillors, that takes us out of committee. Councillors, I propose an amendment from the chair, which would be that council meets with the full board of the Blakeney Miller, if it's acceptable to them, but meets with the full board of the Blakeney Miller to discuss funding opportunities. Full stop. That's it. Do I have a second? So that's the amendment. So I'll move that. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Larder?
Just a question, an amendment to what, James?
Amendment to the 6 recommendation.
It's a separate motion.
It would replace that.
Yes, well, that's not an amendment. It's letting that one lapse or whatever, and having a separate motion. Yeah.
But if I may, councillors, you can choose to, the mover and seconder can choose to withdraw the original motion that was put forward. And if that doesn't happen, you can vote on that if you wish, or the mayor can move an alternative motion, of which you'd vote on the alternative first, and then the amendment as such becomes the motion if that gets up. So up to you how you want to procedurally deal with this.
So we did have a mover and a second. It was a bit confused right at the start, but I think it was Councillor Smith and Councillor Ham. Yep. Are you happy to let that lapse?
I'm happy to do as you suggested, Mr. Mayor, that we replace the recommendations that we have with the one recommendation that we meet with them to discuss further, or to discuss further funding opportunities. But I do want to give the concession, I suppose, to the Blakeney Miller Foundation that the discussion be centred around the development of a master plan for Pioneer Park, because that's what they wanted us to do. What we're saying by doing this is, yes, we'd be willing to enter into discussion with you to develop this, but we need to have a good roundtable conference with council and the foundation.
Thank you, Councillor. That will obviously be the catalyst, yes, or is the catalyst. So, councillors, so I've got so we're assuming that one's going to lapse.
Mr. Mayor, it needs to be formally withdrawn. So Councillor Smith and Councillor Ham need to agree to it to be withdrawn.
Do we have that condition available to withdraw it on condition that it's replaced with that recommendation?
No,
that's out of order.
You can't condition.
It's probably easier just to vote on it, and then just the mayor can then can just decide about his motion when one or two things happen.
Okay, I'm happy to put the motion 1 to 6.
I'll vote for it.
That what we're doing?
I'm happy with that.
Happy with that? Councillor Smith, you happy with put the motion?
Yes, I believe. Oh, sorry, I won't comment on you further at this stage.
Councillor Hand, you happy to put the motion? Anyone further
Can you
discussion?
tell us what the motion is precisely?
The motion is 1 to 6. The recommendations as
proposed in the report on
Right.
page 66 electronically, item 11.3.
everyone clear? We're putting those 6 motions. Put the motion, all in favour. Councillor Ham's in favour. Against? Okay, 6 against. Thank you. Councillors, I'll now propose that the motion I proposed earlier, we meet with Blakeney Miller. Do I have a seconder first?
I'm happy to second it.
Councillor Larder seconded, I think, yes. Thank you. Any further discussion? Put the motion, all in favour?
Would you like me to display that on the screen, Mr. Mayor?
I think it was pretty self-explanatory, wasn't it?
It was, yes.
Yeah. Okay. In favour? Against? So we've got 2 against. Councillor Benjamin, you against? No. Councillor Pritchard's against. Councillor Isselman, you 4 against? Against. Okay, so we've got 2 against. Thank you. Thank you, councillors. Moving on. Do we have Councillor
Just
Isselman?
need to have a vote. Sorry, you've done that. Yep.
Can I have an amendment to that motion, please?
It's been
it's
voted
already been voted on.
Oh, I did put it forward. I did put it.
We can look at something next meeting, Councillor Isselman, and I'm not sure we'll be meeting before then. And I think the other thing, of course, is this is all coming towards the end of this council, and if we, we've got to be sort of cognizant of the fact that we might be proposing things that a new council will look at and throw straight out. So we've got to be aware of that as well. Councillor,
Just point of order. I did put in committee a suggestion that I was going to put a motion forward, and no disrespect to you, Mr. Mayor, but you didn't give me a chance to put that motion up.
And I apologise for that.
And that's why I'm asking to have an amendment to your motion.
It's already been voted on, so we can't amend that.
Could move an additional motion.
That was what I was doing. An additional motion.
Councillor Isselman, it's a bit confused, but anyhow, let's
I have often that, I agree.
Yeah. What's your motion, Councillor Isselman?
That we form a workshop, a working group in council, please, to assist in developing a master plan for Pioneer Park.
Well, how about we make it the Riverwalk, and we look after all of Councillor Pritchard's suggestions through there.
Haven't we already got that proposed?
Don't know whether it's actually formalised yet. So this
No,
will
it's not formalised.
Mr. Mayor, can I just put this
We
up
see
on
the
the
motion,
screen?
please.
Yeah.
So you can see that motion, the original motion was lost.
Yep.
That
Which
then
means we're not accepting that.
the Mayor and Councillor Larder moved that we meet with the board, which was passed. And then Councillor Isselman is moving, but we need a seconder. The council form a working group to advance the Riverwalk precinct.
Master plan.
And the council invite the Blakeney Miller Foundation to be a participant in the engagement process.
A point of order, Mr. Mayor, although that first motion was passed, it can be rescinded if you've got 3 people who want to have it rescinded.
You can, yes.
We rescind the first one.
Do you have a seconder?
Sorry, can you say that to me again? You want to rescind the whole first 6 recommendations?
No, we voted that they're gone. He's rescinding my recommendation. That we
Oh, I beg your pardon.
And leaving the other one.
Do we have a third? No, that lapses. Okay, let's move on. Councillor Isselman,
Yes.
you've got your recommendation. You've got a seconder. Do you have a seconder?
I'm willing to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Any further discussion, although there's been a lot?
No, I think I'll just make the comment that by not passing the original recommendation, point 2 means we do not accept the donation. Thank you, that's good. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All in favour, points 1 and 2. That's unanimous. Thank you. Righto. Do we have Brad here yet, Mr.
Yes, I'll just invite Brad into the meeting.
So do we need a motion that we go back to that, or we don't, do we?
No, that's fine because you passed a procedural motion earlier.
Right. What page was
Brad,
that on?
That's right back at the start. Presentation of financial statements. That's on page 38.
Thank you.
Welcome, Brad.
Hello, thank you.
Sorry to hold you up.
That's quite okay, no problem at all. So is the best way perhaps if I jump in and just share on the screen the conduct report, because this being the main item that the New South Wales Audit Office issued. So in the pack, Matt flagged it, and I'll just have it up on the screen and talk through it and call out some of the key highlights as we go. So importantly, the first point would be just here that we received our audit sign off on the 19th of November, and for this year the deadline was the 30th of November. So well inside the financial statements were lodged on the 23rd of November. So from a project delivery perspective, we were completed and done on time. The next bit of importance of page 1 is that we achieved an unmodified, or what's in simple language known as a clean audit opinion. So at the outset, what we were shooting for is to get it done on time and get a clean audit outcome, and that's what's is expressed in that statement there. So really encouraging, considering the overlay was bushfires back in the January-February period and then rolling into COVID. There were a number of challenges for council to deal with, and as we rolled then into the more balanced date activity, there were some other demands pulling on the finance team in terms of supplying data and information to the commission inquiry and different activities as well. So we really appreciate the efforts to get to this point, working with council's finance team and having a clean, unqualified audit opinion for 30 June. This conduct report is inside the annual financial statements and is a public document available for all stakeholders to view. And the format follows one similar to the prior year. From an income statement perspective, which is your profit and loss, what is outlined here are the primary lines inside it. So rates and annual charges is the key revenue item for Snowy Valleys, and you can see there's a small 1.8% uplift, and then grants and communities implementation funding and some capital funding is really what drove that increase from 22 to 27 million for the 2020 year. Because of that additional one-off funding for stronger implementation and some capital funding, we achieved a net surplus from operations of 4 million. And that's up on the prior year's balance of 3.2 million. So that at face value looks encouraging. The next line is the one which is around the longer term sustainability of council. that says if we withdrew and take out the capital-based funding, it shows the loss that was generated in the absence of that capital grant funding coming through, which can be quite lumpy. And since Snowy Valleys has initially amalgamated, has had a range of funding of that nature coming through for its operations. The next page gives
Brad, are we allowed to
an
interrupt?
overview of the statement of cash flows. So these dark grey.
I've lost Brad.
Oh, of course. Yes, please.
Maybe
Julie.
if Brad stops screen sharing, we've got this in front of us. Maybe if he stops screen sharing, we could hear him better.
Oh, you've lost.
Yeah, we can't. You're in and out, Brad.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, is that better? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sorry, Julia, you've got a question?
Oh, just are you not concerned that you know that you know it's the variance is 381%? Like, is this something that we should be very concerned about? Where are you, Brad? You know, with the net operating result before capital grants and contributions.
Yeah, there's no doubt in a longer term sustainability outcome that council has some concerns that need to be factored in its long-term management plan. Matthew and Suzanne would be more across those, and that's some of the outcomes of all regional councils. One of the key challenges is maintaining an extensive road network and not having the way the current funding is structured for that, and the number of ratepayers to support that outcome is one of those items. And making sure that in terms of the desired service delivery for ratepayers is matched by appropriate funding streams, which is translated a bit of a user pays type system, or working out are the services that we're actually still providing for our stakeholders the services that we need to and should continue to into the future. So there's a bit of a melting pot of things going on, but what I would say is in the short-term horizon, because as the external auditor is sort of defining responsibilities here, mine's are very much a short-term horizon. Snowy Valleys can pay their debts as and when they fall due in the short-term horizon, but there would certainly be an amber light for you, as there is a range of other regional councils around more that medium term, to understand that are we heading a pathway that aligns with sustainability, or are we continuing to whittle away our reserves?
Thank you, Brett. Can I ask a question? Are there any councils, particularly Category 11 councils, that are actually in the black before grants, or are we all reliant on grants?
The vast majority, James, you make a very fair point that the vast majority in that category, there is a couple of odd ones that are, and they're not a healthy surplus, but slightly above. But you're right, the majority of councils, as you move more to a rural setting, the elusive profit is harder and harder. And one of the key challenges is, as infrastructure assets continue to go up in value, the depreciation associated with that makes achieving a break-even result harder and harder each year.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues, and I've got it written down here. More and more assets, and we keep getting opportunities to increase assets, not replace assets, but new assets, and yet we've got to depreciate them.
And usually, yes, even if you're getting assets.
Yep. Thank you, Karen.
So the next page of the conduct report is around the statement of cash flows. Your council is the same as every other council in the sense that you generate positive cash from operations and rates, and then fundamentally you spend it via two ways, either investing in the renewal of your assets, and for you predominantly that's roads, or if the asset management plan so suggests, it's deferred in term deposits until such time as we will spend it. And council has got a manageable level of debt, is the third bar in your cash flow statement there, around 8 million, which relative to council size is certainly not large at all. Statement of financial position. This is an interesting area and one that's got a fair amount of coverage in New South Wales local government just recently, and certainly in the press around the level of restrictions. So if we just talk through that, at 30 June 2020, council had something in the order of $42 million worth of cash and investments. And then what we look at is how is that restricted? You've got external restrictions, which are predominantly for water and sewer. So 27 million of that money is restricted from external orientation. So it must be spent on the purpose for which it was raised. Then we've got internal restrictions. This is where money is restricted based on vote of council. And a lot of councils have money set aside to fund employee leave entitlements, plant replacement, and while the FAG grant is in advance, a lot of them are setting aside that portion of advance to make sure that we can appropriately match it to when the revenue comes through. What that comes down to is saying that council, Snowy Valleys, has 2 million of unrestricted cash. So it's really good that it's a positive number, but as it works through the cascading mechanisms, we started with 42 million after taking into account reserves for both external and internal purposes. What's remaining is $2 million of unrestricted cash. It's a small improvement on the prior year, which was 1.6 million, but it's not a particularly healthy, it's not a large balance, which goes to Julia's point around that sustainability and where, you know, your clarity needs to be very much focused in on the decisions we're doing and the spending. It needs to be consistent with the longer term financial planning that council has done to help understand the allocation of your scarce resources. In terms of performance measures, there's a series of ratios. They're the T Corp ones that come through from a note down the back of your financial statements. Councillors would be familiar with these from prior years. The one that's always a challenge for rural regional councils is that own source operating revenue one, where the benchmark is set at 60%. And the suggestion is that you should have your own source of funds to be above that bar. And the reality is very few councils in a rural regional setting are. You're very heavily reliant on grant funding, and council should continue its activities here. I think it's appropriate to say at this point, for each of those 6 graphics that you see at this section of the report, they should be understood as a group rather than trying to take anything away from one particular measure. Because if you stopped obtaining grant funding to improve the result on your own source operating revenue, that's very easy to do. Just don't get any more grants. That would have a very negative impact on the first ratio, which is the operating performance one. It would just push it further down. So you kind of need to understand them as a collective rather than being focused on any one metric alone. Council does have the ability to pay its debts as and when they fall due. At 30 June, we held $3.35 for every $1 of liabilities. So that means that we've got financial capacity, which is encouraging as a trading partner with the community. And rates and annual charges outstanding. With COVID coming in and bushfires, we were watching this as an area of some concern coming into 30 June. Encouragingly, your ratepayers have continued to maintain those repayment levels below the benchmark. The benchmark set at 10, and the result for Snowy Valleys was 7%. So still well inside the framework, albeit acknowledging there was a small uplift in the result. Council's business is renewing infrastructure assets. In the 1920 year, you renewed 11.3 million worth of assets compared to 13 million in the prior year, and the great vast majority of that is a road network that's been maintained. There were some new accounting standards that come into play for the year, which required a couple of journal entries direct to the statement of changes in equity. So they didn't come through the profit and loss. So we flagged some visibility there, and importantly for council, no instances of legislative non-compliance. So that is a big tick forward and a challenge for some councils, but for Snowy Valley is really pleasing to get the audit done again this year, considering some new challenges, and get a clean audit opinion. And we're looking forward to the 2021 year, and council has some goalposts to navigate moving forward. around the longer term sustainability of council, which I'm aware that management are fully aware of.
Any other questions, Brad? I think you answered a couple of mine in through there when we talked about changes in financial standards for reporting. Accounting for volunteers, we're doing that as well. We've done a lot of work with volunteers this year.
Yeah, it's a new standard that's come into play, and for not-for-profit entities who use volunteers, it can make the accounting a little more complex. But Snowy Valley certainly does enjoy the support of a number of volunteers. The accounting for those works off those that you would otherwise pay for if you weren't obtaining them, and so you can see how that introduces a level of complexity to that accounting.
Thank you, Councillor Wright.
Mute off. Yeah. I was just wondering about the volunteers and the financial statements, and we're losing a lot of 355 committees. So is that going to make any difference to our accounting for those valuable volunteers? I know a hell of a lot of them are in the 355s, and now they're going to be lost to us. So will that make much difference?
From an external audit financial reporting perspective, the answer is no. That won't make a great deal of difference. Whether they're inside a 355 committee or simply operating in the community, the status of a 355 doesn't drive the accounting, Bruce.
However, we've been given a figure of in note 7C that the revenue was recognised by volunteers of 99,000. So surely that will be different. Is that, maybe the CFO might be able to explain that.
CFO.
You, Mr. Mayor. $99,000 in revenue was recognised, but also in expenses. So there is no bottom line impact on our financial statements. That is what the accounting standard demands. And we only recognise those volunteer services that we would otherwise have to pay. Now, whether they're working as an independent volunteer organisation, a Section 355 committee, or just volunteers, doesn't matter. We would still recognise that particular effort of those volunteers.
So, for example, the Tumbarumba Historical Society is becoming incorporated. However, they're still working in the VIC. Their services will be recognised that way?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, absolutely. If we consider that we would be running the VIC as it is run with the volunteer services, if we didn't get the volunteer services, yes, we would recognise them.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, Brad.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for including me.
No.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Brad.
And thanks for waiting.
No sweat.
So, councillors, we have the recommendation there. 3 recommendations. Mover.
Could we have a new page reference, please?
38, I'm on electronically. Seconder. Councillor Benjamin. You with us, Miss Councillor Risselman? Okay. Any further comment? Put the motion. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, that takes us back to 11.4, page 70. Um, 73 electronically. SVC Child Safe Organisation. Do I have a mover for those? Councillor Ham, seconder. Councillor Larder.
I'd just like to congratulate the Executive Director of Community and Corporate and the people who worked on this. It is mandatory that we have this in terms of having childcare in the law for childcare protection, particularly in line of abuse or domestic violence or something like that. I do like the accompanying report and the way that the council has gone and taken each part one by one and gone through it, and you can see very closely their thinking and also their willingness to do further training, like having tough conversations to be coming forward. So congratulations on that, and I would very much support both these recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Ham. Any further discussion? All in favour? Carried. Thank you. That's unanimous. Uh, 11.5, assessment of the DA. Bomboli Avenue, Bomboli. 3 recommendations there. Councillor Smith. Councillor Lada. Councillor Smith. On mute still, Councillor Smith.
I beg your pardon. Given that I was unable to attend the discussion and workshop on this matter the other day, I welcome the fact that recommendation 2 suggests that we defer consideration of this application until such time as a full assessment and notification process has been completed. So, I move that.
Thank you. I think that makes perfect sense. Anything else, councillors? Councillor Lada?
Just from an operational point of view, I just wonder whether the General Manager could perhaps take out an advertisement and perhaps ask the local paper for some editorial, and perhaps even get the responsible team to organise an interview with Dave Eisenhower, just giving the public a little bit of orientation and feedback about what constitutes a building right, so that, you know, we're not in the situation where the applicants are obviously left wondering what's happening, and the council staff aren't, wasting time assessing things without the proper information. I just think that would be a good thing operationally for us to do.
That's just to make the point that a building right to apply for a building permit, basically. CEO, are you happy to do something along those lines?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that would be fine to do that. That's a good initiative for our community.
Thank you, Councillor Lada. Okay, so I've got the motion there. 3 recommendations. Put the recommendations. All in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Committee meetings. 12.1. Disability Inclusion Access Reference Group meeting. Councillor Ham. Councillor Lada. Councillor Ham.
Look, I know Councillor Cross attended both these meetings. I was unable to. She didn't pass on anything in particular to me, but it's I did come in late on one of them. It continues to be a very proactive committee, and looking forward to working with them next year.
Fantastic. Put the motion. All in favour? That's unanimous. Thank you. Takes us to Batlow Development League. 4 recommendations there. Adopting the new core members, election of office bearers, the minutes and the report. Councillor Isselman, you moving that way? Councillor Smith? Councillor Isselman?
It's just on mute.
Point of clarification, please, Mr. Mayor.
Are you moving that, or?
Yeah, I'll move it.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
I just want to suggest that we not adopt point 3 and seek further information, because we're asking people as office bearers in this community committee, and we don't have, and number 4, that we don't have actual names and employment. We don't have any details about these people. So I feel we need something more than just an initial and last name to actually, as a council, accept these people into the committee. So I'd really appreciate the fact that we had more information on that committee.
Look, I think they've been given to us in good faith, and they're, you know, most of them we can recognise. So I think if we just ask for clarification, that would be fine, rather than hold the whole thing up. Yeah, happy with that?
That'll be fine. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anything further, councillors? Councillor Smith?
Given the fact that the 355 committee is going to or moving towards incorporation, it's probably a moot point that by the end of this financial year, it will no longer be a council committee.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Good point.
They might decide otherwise.
They may, but anyhow, that's up to them, and council, I suppose. So I'll put the motion that we accept those minutes. All in favour? Councillor Isselman, you're voting against? Councillor Isselman's against, so that's not unanimous. Thank you. Talbingo progress. 3 recommendations there. Mover. Councillor Larder, seconder. Councillor Benjamin. Anything arising? I'll put the motion. All in favour? Carried, unanimous. Thank you. RRL Advisory Committee meeting. Councillor Ham. Councillor Larder. Councillor Ham.
I'd just like to add an extra motion to this because Kate Cross wasn't able to attend these last 2 meetings. So the recommendation 3 to have another councillor substitute Councillor Cross if she is unable to attend. Now I think that's got to go back to the RL Advisory Committee.
Okay, Councillor CEO.
Mr. Mayor, Councillor Ham, if we could just take that on notice rather than having a resolution on that matter, and look into the Constitution and provide some advice to councillors. And then if the Constitution allows us, we will put that up as a council recommendation. And if the Constitution doesn't allow us, we will ask the council representative to raise it as a matter for the committee to consider, if that is suitable.
Yeah, it's just such a worthwhile. I mean, the Riverina Regional Library is tremendous and does so much for the whole Snowy Valleys Council. I just think it's good if we've got a voice there.
I would be surprised if there's not a vehicle for an alternate delegate in their constitution, but I've been surprised before. Councillor Larder.
Oh, I was just going to say that if there is an if somebody's absent, then, you know, it should just be a reasonable thing to for the councillor to nominate or contact a replacement.
Yeah, we'll find out. I'll put the motion. All in favour? Councillor Benjamin. Carried, unanimous. Thank you. Councillors, that concludes the ordinary meeting. So we will move to confidential. Where councillors participate in meetings remotely by audio-visual link, they continue to be obliged to protect any confidential information considered at the meeting. Where meetings are closed to the public under Section 10A of the Act, councillors should ensure that they participate in the meeting in a location where it cannot be seen or heard by anyone else. Councillors, do have a mover to move into confidential? Councillor Larder, Councillor Pritchard. All in favour?